要继续我们的2019炉石战 HCT 世界总决赛最后一天的赛程，我是主持人安娜丽。Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 2019 Hearthstone HCT World Championship Final Day. 여러분 안녕하십니까? 저는 안나리아가 합니다. 반갑습니다. 한국 팬 여러분들 사랑해. 好。今天呢，我们比赛既然是一个国际赛的话呢，当然呢，跟世界各地的粉丝问个好，只是刚刚好而已啦。好，那我们来回顾一下上一场的比赛。上一场的比赛呢，是我们的这个4强决定赛的第2场，也是呢，我们刚刚看起来非常非常激烈、很刺激的一场。没有想到以这个黑马之姿突起的 Viper 选手，既然让我们的非常有冠军相的 SNJing 赛亚人抖了一下，不止抖了一下，还是变成了没有办法晋级到4强的机会。虽然我个人觉得有点可惜，没有办法再次能看到 SNJing 呢对上 Hunter S 的比赛，但还是恭喜我们的 Viper 成功获得晋级。紧接着呢，我们要来看下一场的比赛，我们的4强赛将会是由我们2位国服选手 LFyueying对上我们的 SNJing。哎，真的是有一点命运的捉弄，没想到这么快就要进行对决了。但是呢，2位选手只有1位可以前进我们的4强，所以请我们所有粉丝朋友们赶快来帮我们2位选手打 call， 他们要准备进场喽。Next match is going to be the 3rd match of quarterfinals, and this match is going to be LFyueying versus SNJing. 好的，欢迎2位选手，请我们2位选手到我们中间。来，先握个手，先礼后兵。OK, please take a seat.
能够从败者组杀出这个小组赛，然后进入8强，我觉得对于我个人而言，还是国服都是比较大的一个突破吧，所以现在也是比较激动。B 博士就是 Bunny Hooper， 在好多大赛中已经4次赢过我了。然后如果我这次还有机会碰到他的话，我一定会就是比之前下的准备还要再多一些，然后争取能够绝杀他。如果我成为了冠军，希望能够用自己的一些言语或者是实际行动去感染一些像我一样就是年轻然后又热爱炉石的年轻人。
现在很开心，因为接下来还有2天时间可以好好准备。我都不想碰到就是剩下那3位，除了 Bunny Hooper 的，因为这是就是内战嘛。但是 Bunny Hooper 已经出现了，所以没办法，还是要面对。但是卡组的话，我觉得打谁都可以打。4套牌就是我认为目前我玩的最好，然后而且也是最适合这版本的卡组，所以我就带了上。有点紧张，但是其实还好，只要我坐上去专注比赛的话，就不会有那么紧张。然后我希望能够取得更好的成绩，然后这次争取拿到冠军。
The stage has been set as the first semifinal has been decided between 2 German players. But there will be one guaranteed Chinese player waiting on the other side of the bracket in the semifinal. Welcome everyone to the 3rd quarterfinal match. Yueying up against Jing. My name is Frodan. I'm joined by Brian Kibler, the Master of Dragons, and we have the pleasure of bringing you guys what is quite possibly one of the most consistent things about the Hearthstone World Championship is a semifinal appearance by a Chinese player.
Yeah, we have the last 2 years, Jason Zhou made the semifinals as one of the few representatives of China who made it to the World Championship. Now, we have that as history guaranteed to repeat itself, as one of these players will emerge through in the semifinals.
That's right. China has had a player that's always been able to make a deep run. It began with the Celestial back in the day, Jason Zhou, as you're mentioning. Jing and Yueying can carry that torch. We do have 2 matchups which may look very similar on the surface, but they actually have very different strategies altogether, as Bomb Warrior was a target ban for Jing, but Rogue and Zoo Warlock are target bans for Yueying, which is a very unusual choice.
Yeah, looking at this, I am a tiny bit surprised how these bans have differently. Obviously, the lineups are quite different, right? HCT has very much the mage, hunter, and rogue style of lineup that's in some ways soft targeting warrior with that mage and that hunter. And I believe he feels like his mage and his hunter in particular may be vulnerable to that zoo.
Yes. So I think the first thing that we'll consider is how will this difference in ban ideology affect the series? I expected HCT to ban the Rogue, and instead he chose to ban the Zoo Warlock, and that already sticks out to me. We're going to start things off with Bomb Warrior up against the Summoner, Kagdar, Dragon, Control Mage, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of nomenclatures that you can have for this archetype, but the most important thing is that you want to have that big, powerful swing turn with Mountain Giants, but yet HCT decided to outfit his deck differently.
It's true. He specifically is playing Doomsayer, which is an uncommon inclusion in this deck. This is one of the decks that does have sort of the most variation. His deck uses specifically the Doomsayer and, oddly enough, the 7-cost Giggly Inventor. Nerfed, still good, it seems, in HCT's opinion. And he has managed to make it here, and Mage has been the single best performing deck in the entire tournament. Obviously has performing well for him as well.
It's so interesting to me. Giggly Inventor is better because it got put to 7 mana in this very specific case of using Conjurer's Calling.
It is better to cast Conjurer's Calling in it. It would still be better at 5 mana in the deck.
Yeah, had you let me finish my sentence before you started giggling at me.
I mean, I'm an inventor, I got to do it.
We have the Town Crier to start things off here. The Rush package has had middling success for the Bomb Warrior, largely because I think Bomb Warrior has a mixture of very powerful tempo options and then the most vanilla minions you could possibly imagine at 3 mana 3/3, 5 mana 5/5, Seaphorium Bombers, and Clockwork Goblins.
Right.
So I always feel like that's kind of been the weird downfall of Bomb Warrior, almost to the point where it makes me feel like people might not be approaching this archetype completely wrong. But I think that's reflected in the fact that its win percentages have also been very mediocre.
I think that in large part people felt like Warrior is one of the strongest classes against some of the popular decks. It's one of the strongest classes against Rogue. It's one of the strongest classes against Zoo Warlock. And it's one of the strongest classes against Token Druid, which many players did expect would show up despite it not having a major showing in this tournament. And then sort of the flip side of that, a lot of players felt like players would expect Warrior, and they felt like Control Warrior is much more exploitable than Bomb Warrior. We've seen Bomb Warrior beat Midrange Hunter, which was one of the decks people brought in anticipation of Control Warrior in order to beat it.
Right. So now HCT, can he continue to push Mage forward? We saw Mage be instrumental in that comeback for Viper just the previous series. Summoner Mage has incredible turns and potential, but HCT choosing that defensive package as opposed to things like the Archmage Arugul, which would give HCT more of that proactive game plan of trying to get the board early and maybe draw some minions. But against Warrior, they have so many removal tools that you have to be careful of extending too early onto the board.
A lot of nothing happened in the early turns. Hero powers and shield blocks. And that does sort of generally favor the Bomb Warrior most likely, simply because there is at least not giants coming out. But the problem is that even if this game kind of goes slowly, Jing is the one who sort of has to kill HCT because HCT's deck has so much more long-term value.
Right.
He has the Conjurer's Calling plan. He has even Power of Creation. He is a sort of greedier version of this mage deck in terms of being able to put the pressure on the removal elements of these warrior decks.
Right. And it just completely shifts it to a defensive mage as opposed to, say, a more mid-range style approach that was similar to the Handlock back in the day, if you guys are fans of the Mountain Giant, Molten Giant combinations of the Warlock class. Now, Jing, once again, he kind of saw that his opponent was starting off slow, no early Book of Specters. So then, does that give him the flexibility of just sitting back? Now that he has 9 cards, he could still pass this turn and try to save his coin or save other things for Dr. Boom Mad Genius.
Yeah, there's not much pressure on Jing to do anything into this Doomsayer, of course. He doesn't want to play a weapons project and not be able to combine it with the Harrison Jones. No reason to give that over to HCT as well to be able to fight for the board.
Town Crier mean, pretty good pickup in the sense that it helps him fill up his mana slot and help him just get that draw out of his deck preemptively, give him more options.
There is a little consideration given to, you know, do you want to maybe Town Cry or Brawl, just to add something that gives you the sort of miracle outcome of a Brawl on a big board. But more often than not, I think that you mostly just kind of want to play it to thin out your deck. This does, you know, get him, for instance, a Militia Commander, not what he got, but Militia Commander alongside, say, Weapons Project, you know, could allow him to kill a big minion that otherwise might not be able to be taken down.
You know, when this Summoner Mage does not get Mountain Giant's Gibbler, it seems pretty weak. This doesn't really do much.
The biggest thing is this is a Book of Specters deck. You know, the whole reason that you have a bunch of cards that look like they come from Arena deck is because you can really only play minions when you're trying to maximize Book of Specters.
Right.
And you know, specifically, HCT has some of these more sort of situational anti-aggro cards like the Doomsayers, like the Giggly Inventor, like the Rotten Apple Bomb. I'm actually somewhat surprised that HCT had chosen to keep that Doomsayer, which he used sort of as a tempo play into, you know, a turn where perhaps Jing would have at best coined out a Sephorium Bomber.
Yeah, I think...
Actually, looking at... Jing doesn't play Sephorium Bomber.
No. Some people were taking out Sephorium Bombers prior to the tournament, and then almost became this thing where, like, it became meta to play two of them.
Well, I'm actually just sort of thinking, what was his plan with the Doomsayer into the 4-mana turn if he's not trying to stop coin Sephorium Bomber?
Well, I think he wants to take proactive.
You just wanted to play a 5-drop on turn 5?
Yeah, and also stop early game pressure if there was the Augmented Elec into the Clockwork, into just like the Wrench Caliber.
I suppose it is true, but I mean, if there were an Augmented Elec, it likely would just come down on 3.
Or coin 3 into 3,
if he were just going to play it. But I mean, and frankly, Jing, he had the Augmented Elec that he could have played, but was waiting to hold on to it for Bobs.
Yeah, it's tricky because I think in Yang's mind, he doesn't want to give Bomb Warrior that head start in damage.
Yeah.
And he does have a lot of heal, but just shows how much respect that he has compared to the amount of disrespect that the Western players have. I mean, it's not even the fact that people aren't bringing Bomb Warrior. It feels like a lot of players from Europe and Americas were actively saying Bomb Warrior was bad. Like, it was a bad choice for this tournament. And I think it's reflected in the fact that, you know, a lot of them not only didn't ban some of these Bomb Warriors, but also crushed it when they were going head-to-head.
Yeah, and if you actually look at the way that the event panned out, there are, I believe, 3 players in this tournament who did not play Warrior. All 3 of them made the top 8. 2 of them are meeting in the semifinals. So you know, perhaps the evaluation of Warrior, despite being a powerful class, arguably a top 2 most powerful class, you know, perhaps it is not as well positioned in a field where players are anticipating it as some of these players may have hoped.
Well, I think the important thing, because obviously I think the first people who our first response to most of that is that this is a tournament environment where it's much more controlled. But that being said, the tournament environment is supposed to expose that there are weaknesses to Warrior.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the case. However, one of the things that makes it so strong is the fact that Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, the hero card from the Boomsday Project, gives so much opportunity and flexibility to this deck. It can allow Jing to play a lot slower, which I think has just kind of been the game plan so far.
Yeah, and you know, Dr. Boom does put the pressure on Ying, despite the fact that Jing has nothing in play. You know, this does mean that every single one of Jing's turns is going to be that much more powerful thanks to the upgraded hero power.
Right.
Once Jing does get to 10 mana, those Omega Assemblies are going to start giving not only value, but also tempo, as all of the minions coming off of them will have Rush.
Right. It's such an interesting scenario, because both of these decks, make no mistake, this looks like a Control Warrior versus a Big Spell Mage type situation from back in the day. Or not Big Spell, but just a Control Mage. It's supposed to be both decks going full speed ahead as soon as like turn 3. But neither of them have drawn the substantial minions to actually put pressure on, so they've taken very slow approaches. It's one of the slowest versions of this matchup that you'll ever see.
And right now, things are just kind of going turn by turn with nothing very impressive happening. It really does. I mean, looking at Ying's hand, other than the Calicos and the Khadgar, a couple legidaries.
It really is
an arena hand, right? And he's got an arena hand against a constructed hand of tons of removal.
Yeah, and I mean, so as the game drags on in a neutral position, do you think that Yang still has that edge in terms of the power that you consider in the beginning of the game when you're saying like they have so many threats that's hard for Jing to keep up?
I mean, the biggest problem is that HCT has not found his key cards. His key cards are Book of Specters, the Conjurer's Calling, and Giant. mostly the Book of Spectres, because he needs to be able to have the resources to really keep up and put pressure on. He just has these sort of middling minions, and I do think that Jing is not yet putting quite enough pressure on HCT in order to prevent him from having time to get to that. Jing doesn't have his bombs yet, right? So he's not really doing a ton to stop HCT from having the opportunity to get to those late stages and make those powerful plays.
And what's tricky is the threat of, say, that Conjure's calling on the Giggling Inventor.
Right.
7 mana minions, there are a handful of powerful ones. There's also a couple of really awkward weak ones. And Jing might just end up clearing it. And that's what he does. He uses Warpath in this position just to clear off some of that minion threat. And also, honestly, his hand was full of just all removal, so if he could utilize it in some capacity, he's going to. Microbot's going for the trade. Yang still looking for his first real true big threat. Okay.
All right, Witch Doctor starts to be something that can give a little bit of value and hopefully find some extra threats. If he finds Book, for instance, finds Spellbender, Mirror Image, and Pyroblast. This is pretty interesting because there are very few targeted spells in Jing's deck. Spellbender can pretty much counter a Shield Slam. There's no slams, for instance. This is literally stop your next Shield Slam, and that's a very big deal because Shield Slam is one of the key ways that Jing has to actually deal with a large individual threat.
Yep, and also Mirror Image, a lot worse against rush minions that can just get past taunts very easily to stop the immediate threat that's on board. I think the Spellbender seems to be fairly flexible with that Shield Slam, but I guess maybe HCT recognizes that Pyroblast might just be the way he closes the game.
It is worth noting that when you are playing a deck that is primarily just minion-based, things that give you ways to sort of interact outside of those minions are very valuable. And Jing, with Dr. Boom already in play, isn't as reliant on spell-based removal, which does make the Spellbender less exciting an option for him there. All right, Security Rover is one of the most powerful options when you do have Dr. Boom in order to rush in and just keep getting additional mechs.
Yeah, Kaboombot in particular is very useful to just get its use multiple times, but so is Security Rover. Security Rover's mech that comes out from being damaged is also able to rush. So sometimes you get to double dip.
Yeah, I like the Rover here. Even if you're not playing it right now, it's still just quite powerful.
Yep.
But I think that he can play it now, and it ends up being kind of an obnoxious roadblock for HCT here.
Yeah.
He can immediately rush into the Fire Tree Witch Doctor. I'm going to go with Darius Crowley, though.
Interesting. I was also considering Militia Commander Weapons Project, but I think Jing might be feeling like this is a little bit more expensive, so get it out of your hand. Force your opponent to trade into it. You're not expecting Darius Crowley to have much more upside. It's just more of the deal with this right now.
Here's Conjure's calling.
So one thing that's kind of a big setup is how can HCT utilize Kalecgos? Kalecgos is a huge defining card. Obviously, the Kalecgos Pyroblast is what many consider to be a dream scenario. In this matchup, with these kind of life totals, not going to be super relevant, but, I mean, Kalecgos staying on the board can be relevant in itself.
Yeah, though I really like just Kalecgos into Conjure's calling because you end up splitting into two big threats. And yes, your opponent is able to possibly have Brawl to deal with them, but, well, they only have so many Brawls.
Yeah. I mean, it could even be two Kalecgos.
Yeah, this Doomsayer is an attempt by HCT to seize back tempo here. Ooh, that is a Wrench Caliber. That alongside the Militia Commander could just take down the Doomsayer if he wants. Give himself a little bit of tempo here. But I think we may see Jing sort of hold off. There's not a ton of incentive for him to clear off just the Doomsayer because he has no minions of his own. It does just protect a 2/3 on the opponent's side.
Yeah, I suppose that's right. I mean,
HCT does not have weapon removal, so he could just preload this Wrench Caliber and kind of get a free turn spending that mana.
I kind of like, if he's going to set up this Wrench Caliber and try to set up ideal bombs, I think the Weapons Projects will become a very dead card in his hand. So if he utilizes, say, Weapons Project and Militia Commander this turn, it feels like he can slowly squeeze out more of that use of the weapon hits before he holds onto the Wrench Caliber for that inevitable big shuffle play.
Though, I mean, playing the Weapons Project and Militia Commander, yeah, you can kill the Doomsayer, but he's essentially leaving his opponent with a 2/3 and spending this turn and these cards in order to do this. He's just going to go base and, okay.
Oh, he's using this to get the armor.
He's like, well, he sort of, I think, came to the sort of half and half conclusion that we did. You were like, well, if I play Wrench Caliber now, I'm just going to be stuck with Weapon Project in hand. And that's particularly important to avoid, given the fact that he has Omega Assembly.
Right, that's true.
All right, well, Calicos finds...
Oh, Splitting Image is so interesting.
Splitting Image is interesting. Unexpected results, not as exciting, considering it gives you small stuff your opponent can just rush into. But if you do set up big minions with Splitting Image, that can be quite powerful.
Right, and yes, I mean, Calicos most likely will just die here to a Shield Slam. It's just the Splitting Image can help you set up for success in the future when you have those Mountain Giants. Because assuming the way this game is panning out, we're going to go pretty deep into the deck. And HCTing is going to need to squeeze out value in any way he can. And I think, as been demonstrated by Viper and Bunny Hopper's deck list, there's definitely a handful of secrets that have a lot of use for this mage deck.
All right, Power of Creation it is, and we got some 5/5s.
Yeah, this is still reasonable stats.
Yeah, that's fine. And he could have Conjurer's Calling there, but the fact that he had Power of Creation, you're getting an 8-mana spell out of the way and forcing your opponent, okay, deal with this, right?
Right.
And say your opponent uses a Brawl. Well, you still have Conjurer's Calling both halves and the Khadgar to make an even bigger board if your opponent does have to commit a second Brawl. And there's a second Wrench Caliber, so some awkward spots here.
Yeah, I think the first thing obviously is to remove the Calicos.
Get rid of that, and then this opens up the space in his hand to play the Omega Assembly.
I like it.
And that's only the case because, actually, yeah, he's got 8. Yeah, that's only the case because of the Omegas, rather the Weapons Project last turn too.
Sure. I mean, he can squeeze out even more value off his hero power by killing his Toki first before he goes to Mega Assembly. Augment to Alec just to shuffle 2 bombs.
He just wants to kill everything, it looks like.
This will be the first bomb shuffled into the deck. There is possibilities for the Warrior to set up big bomb damage towards the late stage of the game, the deeper Yang draws into it.
The problem is this isn't that kind of matchup. You're not really playing a matchup where you get to go, okay, I am at turn 1 million. It's also worth noting that this is a slightly awkward position for HCTing because he played his Calicos and that left him without a dragon for that Crowd Roaster.
Yeah.
So there's no easy way to get this Elec off the board if he decides that's important. He can use the Voodoo Doll, but that's a bit of an awkward turn playing pretty much fully reactively at 10 mana just to deal with the Elec.
Right.
I mean, he could play Voodoo Doll into Conjurer's Calling. That is a way to take a semi half and half kind of approach to your turn to get rid of the Elec and develop something. But getting 2 3-drops in play against a Dr. Boom at 10 mana is not very impressive. You usually want to go bigger with the Calling.
Yeah, not even having that power creation for that proactive plan and response. And I think leaving up Augment to Alec with a full mana slot or full mana usage for Jing is very scary.
Now he's going for Splitting Image, setting it up.
Yep.
Okay.
Which almost makes me think that you're just going to drop the biggest minion you can possibly do. Maybe just Crowd Roaster for tempo and then Conjurer's Calling the following turn.
I mean, that's an absolutely reasonable option.
Jeez, Jing really is playing Control Warrior.
Well, I mean, a lot of these Bomb Warrior decks, especially Jing's, they basically have a lot of control elements and then the Bomb plan to give them something proactive that they can do in order to have a way to beat the control decks, or rather the anti-control decks. So I think that we may see Jing actually just fire off the Weapons Project to test for Counterspell.
Yep. He tested for Iceberry, obviously.
Yeah, he certainly does not want to get his Omega Assembly counterspelled because that's an absolute disaster, and this is his lowest value card.
Right. Also, it's then overriding HCTing's extra charge. The Boom Reaver.
Boom Reaver. So there's not that many really big things in Jing's deck, but we see that he has a hand full of low-impact stuff. And getting Boom Reaver allows him, if HCTing has another one of these turns where he tries to play to set up for the future, it makes him have just a powerful proactive play that really puts HCT on the back foot.
Yep. So no mirror entity or any on-play minion activation for that secret. So Jing gets closer, knows that it most likely is splitting image, or the possibility of that spellbender. Oh, power creation.
Number 2 with Khadgar.
Yeah, I think that's exactly
if he wants to go for it.
I think so.
He has not seen a Brawl. There are still both Brawls remaining in Jing's deck, but you're playing a deck that really has a lot of important Brawl boards. He does go, ooh, okay, Violet Warden.
Pretty solid.
The biggest body. This can't be Warpathed away. That's a big element of the 7 health here.
The Boom Reaver can chew through it.
It can.
Especially if it pulls a copy of Blastmaster Boom.
The spell power is actually kind of interesting with the Pyroblast.
Yeah, 12 damage.
There's still a lot of life on Jing's side. I mean, I feel like Boom Reaver almost has to be what Jing wants to go for here. He wants to save the Brawl for something bigger than this. Not that much power on the side of the board. This is a great opportunity to play the Boom Reaver. It does mean that you are possibly activating a splitting image if there is one on that side. And it's either splitting image or Spellbender, and there's really no great way to test. All right, well.
Oh, I always love myself some Pinata action. I think they always have a potential to disrupt the game completely. And the X factor that a lot of people consider when you have like Hagatha or Dr. Boom.
And he's going for it.
I think it's a great pick.
The question, though, is, how does Jing manage this here if there is a splitting image?
Right.
Pinata, well, just gives your opponent another full 4/7.
I mean, he tests for the secret, too, sees that it is splitting image.
Oh, the Elec, extra bomb.
That's 5 bombs in the deck. 30 damage.
Isn't that just 4? No, it is 5. Yeah, he swung the other one without it. Yep, there are 5.
Alakir comes into hand. That's pretty useful. I would say on average that's better than what you would hope for. There's a lot of legendaries that can do powerful effects, but none that really synergize too much.
And still no dragon. That Crowd Roaster is stranded as far as the battle cry is concerned. HCT does have the ability to just take out this Elec.
Right.
We must band together.
Is he going for this Conjurer's calling?
All right. Well, got ourselves. Oh, wow. Okay, there's some burst at least. Oh, my God. Savannah Highmane. That is the absolute best case scenario for HCT here. He gets a board that is incredibly resilient to Brawl.
Yes. Very much so.
Wow.
And he gets chargers to put on pressure.
And almost anything that survives here doesn't die to the Wrench Caliber, unless it is the Khadgar. And there's, wow, oh.
Well,
Jing may have, if he wants to answer this full board, he may have to use Brawl and Warpath. And those are 2 very important resources.
He did pick up the Militia Commander, so Militia Commander plus 3 Warpaths will clear off everything except that one individual copy of Highmane. And if he uses Warpath with the Wrench Caliber swing, he can reduce it down to just 2/2s.
Yeah.
Not the end of the world, but definitely not ideal for Jing.
All right, Warpath it is.
Yeah, and the important thing is that Yang just like forces more removal from Jing.
Yep.
And if he ends up sticking things like Mountain Giant with no shield slams, with no brawls, that becomes really tricky for Jing.
And now, the best use is, Micro Scraw into 2 of these.
Yep. So ends up instead saving the Militia Commander for
and this,
use in the future.
Jing is at high enough life total, he doesn't need to panic, right? I said that if he wants to full clear the board, he has to commit the Brawl and the Warpath. Brawl, of course, a much more important resource to save against the really big boards, but there's a substantial threat here remaining for HCT, but these are all 2/2s. And there's still that Security Rover in the hand for Jing. And Security Rover kills as many 2/2s as you want.
I see a vision in the flames.
Polymorph, Flamestrike, Frost Nova, all of Mage's best basic cards, I would say, basic spells. Frost Nova, fantastic if you need to push, but the problem is, again, Rush overlooks that, so Frost Nova's effect is a lot weaker. Flame Strike helps you deal with things like that Security Rover and Militia Commander boards, and then Polymorph for those legendaries that were picked up through either Omega Assembly or through the weaponized Pinata.
Does go with Flame Strike. What are sort of wide boards? I suppose with the Voodoo Doll already in hand, as well as a second copy in... oh no, he's already played the other one previously. So yeah, he does have a Voodoo Doll though, so he's kind of hedging his bets as far as wanting to have removal for different things. And yeah, I feel like Jing though, with that Security Rover in hand and this board of all 2/2s, is... Yeah, it is very good. That ends up actually running very well into the Flame Strike from HCT though. So you know, he's like, okay, I have a way to deal with a big thing. With the Voodoo Doll, I need to be able to deal with the wide board. And it's going to be rewarded because that Security Rover is going to make a very wide board for Jing and kill everything this turn.
Okay, then.
Yeah, I mean, Jing also is coming up to that point where he has a lot of bombs invested, and because he used Warpass, he won't have that ability to go for that big pressure play of Blastmaster Boom plus killing his own boom bots. I wonder how much that's going to play a factor.
Yeah, he's going to hold off on the Security Rover. I'm a tad bit surprised because this feels like such a great opportunity to use Security Rover and create just a really powerful board.
Right.
Book of Specters.
Oh boy.
Is a draw for HCT.
I mean, if he drew both his power for creation.
Yeah, there's only one more Book of Specters in his deck. Mountain Giant. Bomb. You do not get to discard that. That blows up on you. Another bomb.
Okay.
Oh, but Ziliax.
Third bomb.
This is not necessarily good for Jing here because he still has Blastmaster Boom in his deck. He wants there to be as many bombs, you know, at least 3 bombs in the deck. There are still 3, exactly 3, I believe. Are there 4? Oh, yeah, new one went in last turn. So, with 4 bombs left in the deck, Blastmaster Boom is still full power.
I wonder.
And I think, yeah, with that brawl in mind that you were mentioning earlier, HCT is still cautious on whether or not he wants to commit very hard on the Mountain Giant or try to see if he can go a little bit wider and make it uncomfortable for Jing and bait it out. But it's like he's got Mountain Giant and then a slew of very mediocre minions.
Right.
I guess Crowd Roaster is not exactly mediocre. It's just that Jing's been saving that for like removal because he knows that Jing has a couple of cards that he's been holding on to.
It's a very defensive play from HCT here.
Is he trying to like fatigue Jing? It feels like it.
That seems tough when
Blastmaster.
you're getting bombed. There's Blastmaster Boom.
That's a big boy.
Yeah.
And there's still 4 bombs in the deck, so that's a full board of boom bots.
And you know, this is a apple bomb for HCT here that can soak up a bit of damage from boom bots.
Right.
But there's still the possibility of just a lot of damage going face.
Yeah. I mean, it could be lethal, right? If all 5 boom bots hit the rotten bomb and goes face for 4 every time, it's a very unlikely scenario. But we've seen some crazy things here at this World Championship. Hope you guys enjoy the fireworks.
Boom. 2.
Solid.
A little below average.
Okay, 3.
All right.
I was kind of joking, Kibler.
Ooh.
All right, that was kind of meh. And a 4. That's some big damage coming up from these boom bots, plus an extra from the Kaboom.
Yeah.
Alexstrasza, but doesn't do anything in this position except activate the Crowd Roaster, which is actually kind of a big deal.
That actually is a big deal. Simply the fact that he drew a dragon here is important because it means that HCT has the opportunity to take out Blastmaster Boom and even just Conjurer's Calling if he wants.
Yeah, that is true.
There is kind of the X factor of that Alec here, though. That's definitely not something that is on your radar when you're playing against a Warrior deck. And Jing has this sort of ace in the hole with that Elemental Lord.
And you have to also account for the fact that there's still 4 bombs in the deck for HCT.
Ooh. Exotic Mount Seller.
Jing could push 8 damage this turn.
Yeah.
Put HCT down to 6 life. And then go for gold.
He does know that there's Alexstrasza remaining in his opponent's deck. And your opponent just played a far left Crowd Roaster, Maybe it just got turned on.
Okay. I mean, the Dynomatic pickup may hone in the Boombot damage.
Yeah.
So that you can get the Boombots to ideally aim for your opponent's life total. I like that to start things off. Plus, your Boombots are mechs, so the Dynomatic can help clean up the damage first and then go face.
There's also just still that Boom Reaver, right?
Right.
I'm a little surprised that we didn't see that played earlier, but now it does give you an opportunity to have a very good chance of cleaning up your opponent's stuff. All right.
Okay, so now the Dynomatic can trade in.
Jing can use the Militia Commander to trade into the Exotic Mount Seller.
Yes.
And then just clear off the board, send the bombs to the face. Is he trying to set up a big boom? No, he decides, all right, I'm going to play removal here. These are going face.
4 out of 12 are bombs. Bomb number one.
That's actually, could be good. Could be good for HCT because of that Alexstrasza. He has an opportunity to play Alexstrasza here in a position where he's very unlikely to die, and he needs the life gain. So it's better to get the bomb out of your deck and then be able to play Alexstrasza for value. There's also Ziliak's Giant, which is another opportunity to present a defensive posture that still puts on some significant pressure as well.
Yeah, gaining that life back with the Ziliax could be exactly what HCT needs to do the halfway play, but he's still only going to 10 life, which means 2 bombs, plus if Jing shuffles a couple more in, could be it. That being said, Venge Calibers are gone. Clockwork Goblin has also been used, so it's very hard for Jing to generate more bombs unless he gets a delivery drone to discover more, or Omega Assembly number 2 gives him exactly what he's looking for.
Yeah, it feels like HCT is actually on kind of a fatigue plan here. Will be Alexstrasza, so he is, as I mentioned, pretty happy about that bomb draw.
Mega Assembly.
Assembly is very powerful.
Also, he has the laser, so that's another 3 damage.
He has the Boom Reaver too, which he still has just had in his back pocket if he wants to take down Alexstrasza with a Boom Reaver plus a Boom Bot.
Maybe he just wants to go all face. He has 6 direct damage from the Alec here. He's got 2 plus 3 from the hero power.
He's got 10. Right?
I think it's
6,
11.
7, 11. No, you're right.
And
one bomb would end the game.
Would end it. There's 3 bombs left. That's a 30% chance to win just off the next draw.
And you've seen Alexstrasza used, and you still have 2 bombs in play.
I mean,
and you're 36.
And you still have a contingency plan too. A lot of times when you go for these bomb plays and you're like, okay, that's my only last out, but Jing still has Brawl. He still has a Mega Assembly. He still even has the Boom Reaver, although I'm sure he's running out of minions. I think there's only 1 Dynomatic left in the deck at least, and the Eternium Rover that he hasn't played.
All right.
I like this.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Dr. Boom going to the rope.
Yeah, I think Boom is even giving you hints with his emotes.
Yeah, he's like, hey, let's blow some stuff up.
Oh, yeah.
Get him. Oh,
He gets the bomb for 1 damage. 30% chance.
No, not a bomb. Huh.
Well, if that landed 4 each, you would have won the game.
Yes, but those bombs are pretty powerful if you just have them play when you brawl.
Right.
Because the chances when you brawl of those bombs going face are just so valuable. And your opponent, to kill them, they have to do something. But it does, this still has put HCT down to 5. But I'm particularly surprised at this decision because he could have just both hit Alexstrasza and not killed Alexstrasza and not had HCT at 5 to kill him if he drew a bomb.
Yeah,
so you shake the head from Jing.
Yeah. And I think he's kind of recognizing he could have optimized that just a little bit better. Yang, I think, in his mind, recognizes what's happening, wants to play Ziliax of some kind, but if he does, he wants to play another powerful minion like Mountain Giant, but he can't hero power the Divine Shield off.
He can play Giant into Ziliax. Oh, okay.
This is ballsy.
Wow.
Yang's playing the odds.
No bomb.
It's likely that he doesn't draw the bomb, but that is a dangerous game, Brian Kibler.
Yes, it is.
And plus, we don't know what the mechs that are in the Omega Assembly or the delivery drone. I mean, Jing might be able to get even more bombs based off this.
We shall assemble. And a
Mega Devastator clears the board.
Yeah. Devastator alone does it. And then there's a stealth minion.
Yes. The Coppertail here is pretty nice to just make it hard for the mage to remove.
Crucially, if you Devastator trade, play a stealth minion, your opponent cannot Zilliax it.
Oh, you're right. There's no minions for it to trade into. At least not naturally.
And that's 2 draws. HCT has to fade a bomb because there's no minion in play to attack Zilliax into if Jing makes that play.
At the same time, look at HCT. I mean, he had this opportunity. If he can pressure enough, he has Pyroblast in hand, so he is trying to go for the win. Yeah. But there's a Mega Devastator, a massive pickup for Jing to swing the board in the other direction.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Jing could play Dynomatic and leave himself a board as well. Nope, gonna trade.
I like the stealth.
There's the stealth. Is it a bomb?
It's a bomb! Jing is gonna take the first game of the series. Bomb Warrior, a deck that HCT was hoping to defeat, has escaped in the first game of the series.
Whew. That is the second time so far in this World Championship we have seen a game that goes down to, is that card a bomb or not? And every time, I get a little rush.
I think that's what the designers intended it to be. Jing able to destroy HCT's chances of stealing that game despite having a slow start, but the slow start on both sides. You know, we're kind of talking about the longer the game goes, who ends up being an advantage. Yes, Mage has all these power plays, but they run out of draws to reduce the chances of the bombs being able to land for max damage.
Yeah, and I feel like there were a number of opportunities for both players to give themselves perhaps a better chance to maximize, whether they blow up, whether I don't blow up. And, it's definitely a very tough spot. This is, battling for a spot in the semifinals of the World Championship. But I think both these players have an opportunity to tighten up their play.
All right, well, that's just game number 1 here in this best of 5. What's going to happen in the second game? We'll find out when we return to the World Championship.
我是凌乱镜，虽然我是个新人，但是我足够努力，然后心态现在也放得比较平和，然后这次比赛我会就是把自己表现到最好，把自己的风格也会展现到极致吧，然后希望大家能够支持我。我的专业是传媒学，然后其实我学的专业和我现在现在从事这个炉石竞技，我认为是或多或少有一些联系的。就是我会把之前在学校学到一些专业知识去用到竞技炉石，所涉及到的其他一些层面吧，比如说比赛解说，或者是做主播这些类型。所以说我还是蛮热爱我的专业的，也蛮热爱炉石，对。我认为就是一对一的这种竞技比赛是能完全的，印证，就是能够证明自己的实力吧。另一方面的话，我认为就是竞技炉石，也会给我带来一些就是生活中的一些乐趣吧。就每次去参加竞技比赛，会认识到更多的朋友，还有就是和我一样足够对炉石有热爱的这种。一帮热血青年，所以说在这个过程中也收获了自己的友谊，所以我非常热爱竞技炉石。如果我夺冠的话，我认为原因的话一定是源于我首先最主要的是对炉石足够的热情和投入。虽然口头上说是运气，但是运气往往都会站在那个就是足够准备足够充分，而且表现足够好的那一边。所以我虽然一直在强调运气，但其实我更多的是在比赛中尽量的把自己做到最好，然后我认为自己做到最好，那个所谓的运气就会偏向你这边。
大家好，我是来自 LF 的HCT，我是来自中国。我的性格是比较的，可能算是内向，就是如果跟不熟的人的话，会说话比较少，但跟熟人就会比较放得开。我唱歌的话，这个的话就是当你一直输，你可以用唱歌来缓解你的，就 就是那种负面情绪，然后让你接下来的比赛或者是天梯的那种排名的对战中可能会更好。这就算是我自己的爱好吧，就是比较喜欢。然后表演的话也应该不算，就是我可能直播的时候会唱一下歌，就是只是哼一哼，也不会说刻意去唱。
Would you be willing to sing just a small excerpt of a song?
就我比较内向，所以我在镜头前我可能放不开，所以我觉得不太好。对。Listen to the song here in my heart, a melody I start but can't complete。唱歌一般都是在我直播中，就是我在天梯中上分的时候，如果打的就是有一段时间的连跪，然后会影响我之后的心态嘛，所以我会通过唱歌来缓解我的情绪，不然我会就是一直憋在心里。上一个让我特别开心的事吗？我觉得只有炉石才能会让我特别开心。
To upset the Summoner Dragon Mage from HCT, and we're kind of looking at some of the data out there. That is a massive upset the more I look at it.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. I mean, the Warrior matchup is one of the main reasons to play the Summoner Mage deck. And HCT did have some opportunities, I think, that he might have been able to put himself in a safer spot. Though, to be fair to him as well, his draw was pretty bad for a long time. He didn't find his first Book of Specters for quite a long length of the game. And that gave HCT just a ton of time to set up so many bombs in his deck that put him in that position in the first place.
That's right. So we're going to go to a Tempo Rogue mirror. Although, is it really a mirror, Brian Kilburn? We've seen this matchup actually quite some times, which is the Thief version of Tempo Rogue versus a more aggression-based Tempo Rogue.
Yeah, this is two different styles of the Rogue deck. HCT is playing the sort of Thief version with the Vendettas, Henge Clan Burglars, and Underbelly Fences, whereas HCT is playing the more aggro version, but he does have the High Spear and Togwaggle thrown in there to give him a little bit more power in the late game. And he does have that, as you see in his hand, Myra's Unstable Element, which is a card that has actually found its way out of a lot of the other Rogue decks simply because they have so much power in card draw already.
Yeah, and these are like the cards you want towards the end of the game. If you're HCT and Jing, you don't want Leroy Viscerate, Myra's Unstable Element just yet. You want that early game Evil Miscreant. You want to be able to win the board through your mixture of Vendetta, Underbelly Fence. Although it's not exactly as easy to activate because Blink Fox doesn't grab it from a different class. And that's kind of the one thing about this Rogue that Jing was talking about. It's much better against the non-Tempo Rogue matchup. So I think he'd prefer to play this against other classes from HCT, but hey, gotta do what you gotta do to win.
This is a really clunky hand from HCT here. These are all of his most expensive cards. Literally, if you look at the bottom of his deck list, those are the 4 cards that are in his hand right now, and that is exactly what you do not want in this matchup. You're looking to go fast, you're looking to have both early threats and early answers, and not your late game power cards right at the start.
That's right. That gives him a little bit of action on the curve because he can dagger up and play the Dread Crusader the next turn. Looking at HCT's deck list, he does have Henge Clan Thug as well, so he does have some pretty decent draws on turn 3, but with his hand currently the way it's looking, Jing's going to be the one taking initiative.
Just attacks right away.
I like this. Right now he doesn't have a turn 4 play either, so if he does pick up Henge Clan Thug, chances are he might want to just dagger up on 4 anyways. And Jing picking up pretty much the ideal mid-range hand that he's looking for. We've seen Jing choose to play for more value as opposed to board tempos a lot of the times. And I think it's just him identifying his role as being the defensive, value-oriented deck. If he can go toe-to-toe and drain the resource, utilize Vendetta and Underbelly Fence in order to play a battle of attrition, he should come out ahead. Yeah, but maybe he doesn't need to.
Right, and I think that right now Jing is contemplating two worlds, right? One is which I point out a Van Cleef. How does that world work? What are my best options? That does give him a curve of Blink Fox into Henge Clan Burglar the following turn. But the world that it looks like he's choosing to live in is to coin out the burglar next turn, which gives him immediately turn 3 access to Vendetta. He may suspect that HCT does not have Hench Clan Thug, considering he attacked with his dagger that turn.
Right.
But yes, he still has the opportunity, if, say, HCT picks it up, to coin out and immediately kill with that 0-cost spell.
Right.
Or Visceral Corsair.
I think Yang is opting instead to just take it very slow.
Yep.
Doesn't want to give his opponent any opportunity to swing back at him. Drake Corsair can be used as a defensive tempo option. And for something like that, if it was a coin waggle pick into a Drake Corsair, then you could try to use it to defend themselves later on if he picks up his own waggle pick.
And now, because there's no play on Yuying's side, I think there's a very good chance we may just see the Blink Fox come down because there's no immediate need to turn on his Vendetta. He can save the coin to use later, perhaps as a combo enabler, or to power up his Van Cleef.
Yang does have a double sap rogue deck
Right.
list, though, so he is a little bit more heavy on the single target removal than the other rogue decks, which have been cutting sap and trying to be squeezing in more damage.
Yeah, you're less inclined to go in on a Van Cleef than you would be against some other versions. And that's a card that may be on Jing's mind because, well, Ying hasn't done anything. So, maybe you have just removal spells, sap, of course.
Choose soon.
Been taking a long time thinking about some of these turns, but he's mapping out his future turns of what it looks like, and especially if he's able to utilize Van Cleef for the optimal swing.
Backstab is the draw. So
More air here for Ye Ying.
it does at least give Ying the ability to kill this if he wants to, pretty easily. I mean, he could obviously just eviscerate as well. Eviscerate, attack this redagger, save the backstab as potentially a combo enabler.
Right. And then actually have plays for the following turn with Captain Greenskin. This is a little bit of a, kind of what Ye Ying is paying for by having that unstable element. He's accepting that he's going to have a dead card for a while, but it is one of the most powerful cards in the rogue class.
Right. Element is extremely powerful, but I feel like we're seeing, sort of, there's a lot of elements that Ying has in his deck that are power-oriented, right? And frankly, they're all in his hand. And the Myra's is at its best if you just have, oh, well, I have a deck full of tons of cheap stuff. I play all that cheap stuff. And by having Myra's alongside Heistbear and Togwaggle, it makes it just that much more awkward to try and utilize it effectively.
I wonder if Yang's going to go for this Drake Corsair now, because then he could use Captain Greenskin to fight for tempo on the following turn. But it is coming up on the waggle pick turn.
Yeah, and also I think there's some desire, okay, well, maybe I just save this to Greenskin up my dagger, so I want to redagger if that's my plan, to get max power out of it. Eviscerate is the draw for Jing. Looks like a fairly... well, I was going to say fairly easy turn to just play a burglar, but he does have the opportunity to coin plus Pogo Hopper plus Edwin and make a big threat.
Yeah, I think the big threat here is a little bit more suspect for Jing because he sees Yang's not developing, which means he probably is holding more reactive cards. Then again, he also played backstab from the far right, so it's very confusing information for Jing, and I think that's why it's taking a long time.
Pounce is very strong, just as a tempo option. Bloodlust, less likely to be awesome in a lot of instances, but if you do end up with a Miscreant and a bunch of lackeys, there are no copies of Fan of Knives in Yue Ying's deck. So that does give a strong opportunity for Jing to have that as a finisher, but Pounce is just such a strong tempo option that, yeah, it is the choice that Jing makes.
I just want to pull up an interesting statistic. In the tempo rogue mirror, in the sense, when we say this, we're taking just from HS Replay, Myra's Unstable Element is actually the worst win rate card off the mulligan. It is kept a small percentage of the time, around 10 to 15%, but it's just interesting to think about that. Ying values it so much, specifically going up against Jing. Just remember, these guys have different information, different deck lists, different game plans, but it's just, he kept it even though it's the worst card statistically to do that. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I wonder.
And this turn is actually a little bit of why I felt like maybe Ying wanted to play Eviscerate last turn.
Right.
Because if he had played, he's going to go with the Dread Corsair now. But if he had played the Eviscerate rather than Backstab, he could have just played Greenskin Backstab.
It's better tempo.
Yeah.
And also, more damage on the backswing with a waggle pick. This is a very common occurrence that we see with Jing. It feels like he plays hand rogue. Like, at this point, why not just stick Mountain Giants in your deck? Because I feel like Jing constantly has 7 to 9 cards in his hand at all times.
All right, well now this can be a big Edwin turn at little cost to you because you're playing the Vendetta for free. You could even play the raiding party if you want, and then coin out the Edwin, or go wider on the board, play either Pogo Hopper or SI and use your coin in Edwin.
Yeah, the thing is, the raiding party doesn't exactly benefit too much because he already has a Waggle Pick in hand. Right. But the nice thing is that he can, I mean, his hand's also telling him to do a lot of damage. He's got Eviscerate and Pound, so I kind of like some kind of setup to pressure because he does have a hand that can win the game in 3 turns.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to go with raiding party. I kind of liked SI more, if only because it gives you multiple threats in play right now, and reactive cards that make a lot of sense to be in your opponent's hand. Well, sap. Ooh, even gonna pounce. Okay, well this is just obviously he creates a very powerful board right now, and he is setting up for a powerful turn next turn with Waggle Pick into Dread Corsairs. But he's gonna get the bad news that there is a sap here. But fortunately for him, nothing else.
Yeah, and this is just a very, very awkward hand again. We've been harping on it, but when you're floating 1 mana on turn 3, 2 mana on turn 4, a few more mana on turn 5, and now 4 on turn 6, it feels like Yang's been stuck on 1 or 2 mana crystals every single turn.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just his opening hand was just, as we mentioned at the beginning of the game, the 4 most expensive cards in his deck. These are not the cards you want, and he has drawn a bunch of reactive stuff. And while that has kept him alive to this point, it has not really put him in a situation where he is able to really do anything proactively.
Yeah, and now with 1 sap being used, if I'm Jing, I'm thinking about ways that I can set up a big Van Cleef on the future turns, although it doesn't look very clean right now. His double Dread Corsair turn, though?
Yeah, it's interesting because he's 1 mana short of being able to Waggle Pick into Dread Corsair, and the Van Cleef again. I think it's just this is a powerful enough turn that he just wants to go for it and push because there's no need to just try and make a big Van Cleef again, force his opponent to deal with this.
Funny enough that, with things like the Pogo Hopper, that is like a target that the Waggle Pick could hit, and I wonder if Jing's like hesitant to play things like Pogo Hopper because he'd rather bounce Evil Miscreant or SI7 Agent, or even just like, the Hedge Clan Burglar.
Yeah. Pogo Hopper is also a decent, just relatively cheap enabler for his Miscreant if he wants to get that going.
He could if he's just bouncing his Pogo Hopper and make it bigger.
Pogo Hopper, 0 cost 3/3.
Oh gosh.
Van Cleef, this is just such a I have to feel for Ying here. He's just had a terrible string of draws, but he has, I feel like, set himself up for this to an extent because of that Myra's Keep, because of the Myra's Ice Bear and Togwaggle build of his deck.
Exactly. Choosing to put Togwaggle in his deck without having, more of that support. We've seen players choose Heist Bear and Togwaggle, but put Evil Cable Rat to make sure that they can guarantee lackey activations. Without that, Heist Bear and Togwaggle is a very subpar card.
Yeah.
It's a 6 mana 5/5, and that's just not good enough. Not even close. And now Jing, his hand is coming together, but he had like a pretty decent hand, but he's playing so slow to the point where Yang I can still see Yang coming back if he gets like double prep with big stuff off the Myers and Stable.
I don't know. I feel like this is a very hard game for Ying to win at this point. I mean, this could be Burglar into Prep Eviscerate Edwin. Finds a new challenger. You can prep that out.
I think I like the Prep Eviscerate Van Cleef. You saw a sap already.
Yeah.
But your first play, I think, is spot on here. The only awkward thing is the weapon. You kind of want to swing so you can get more damage in. But I think the Van Cleef more than compensates for it. You still set up a lethal.
And if you hit the Pogo Hopper, you just replay the Pogo Hopper as a 3/3, and it's glowing. He hit the Pogo Hopper, so that gives him another 3/3.
Another 2/2 buff.
An even bigger Van Cleef. This is lights out.
Ye needs Vanish.
Yeah. That's a Dread Corsair. That's not going to do it.
So Myers Unstable Element can draw Preparation, and Evil Miscreant can get you a lack, but you still have the mana to play that.
Yeah, there's really, with a full hand, doesn't even get that many cards off the Myras, and that is it. Jing is going to lead the series 2-0.
Yeah, that was a laughably one-sided game. And I think it's a combination of a couple of factors that had nothing to do with technical play, unfortunately. You talk about, well, I guess if you talk about technical play, you talk about the mulligan.
Mulligan is a very important part of technical play. Speaking of technical player, one of the greatest to ever do it, Kalento out there signing some things for some fans. Many of the Grandmaster players here over the course of this event. And Kalento has a lot of fans here in the East.
He does. They call him K-God over in China, and I imagine that he is also very popular, if not seen as deity, in other parts of the world. As you can see, the lines for the Grandmasters who are out here greeting people. In fact, you see Pavel next to him too. Well, I guess they switched away from the screen. I'm looking over on the other side of the tavern. Lines are pretty long. I mean, these guys are busy, to say the least.
Yeah, and these two players hoping to ascend to that pantheon themselves with a berth to the semifinals here. The winner will continue the tradition of a Chinese player making it through to the top 4 of the World Championship and hope to do one better or at least match the feat of their countryman, Titular Celestial, back in 2014 when he made it all the way to the finals.
And that being said, and this is definitely a little bit more unusual for even me to say, but I'm pretty disappointed with how that ended up panning out, and I hope HCT can bring it back starting from game number 3. We have seen reverse sweeps in the past, but HCT's got to tighten it up. Can't be making these kind of decisions with that much on the line and having it being punished. You look like a fool.
Yep, and this deck from Jing is unique in this tournament. He is the only player to play traditional Token Druid. And even in the form of traditional Token Druid, he has some unusual choices. We see them in his hand. The Belligerent Gnomes.
Times 2. He's got 2 of them. It's not just a tech card.
And I think that this card in his deck is emblematic of a couple of things. One, it's just a high health 2-drop, which is powerful to be able to buff in general. But 2, and more importantly, I think that he probably expected a metagame with a lot of aggressive decks. Yeah. And that leads to, Belligerent Gnome is going to be excellent. And look, he keeps his Belligerent Gnome against the Mage deck.
Curve is pretty important, I'd say, against Summoner Mage.
Part of it is the curve, and part of it is just, it is a high health minion that if you buff it, very difficult for them to remove. And we look at HCT's hand here. Once again, no Book of Specters.
The Book of Specters does have the Dragon Ball Scorcher, and maybe the Fire Tree Witch Doctor can even give HCT that spell that he so desires.
And the Witch Doctor is an option here, or a ping. Gonna go ahead and ping down the Acorn Bearer. Interestingly, if he plays the Witch Doctor, he essentially would be in a relatively similar position in terms of very likely it gets created into, but you get the Discover out of the way. So if you do want to find some sort of AoE, you've now invested the mana to get that 2/2 in play and find that. So it's kind of a balance between how much do I value the body of this versus how important is it that I find that AoE card or whatever I get from the Witch Doctor faster.
Token Druid gets a little bit of a bad rap within the popular side of the community, popular opinion of the community of being a stat dumping machine. You try to play whatever you can and go wide on the board as much as possible. And I think in this case, it's very similar. Dreamway Guardian seems to be the most efficient way to spread yourself wide. I mean, it also kind of prepares himself in case he ends up... Whoa!
No, this is because he plans to coin out Whispering Woods.
Okay.
So there's very little reason to expend a resource that's just going to get in the way of making Wisps in the first place.
Okay, that's fair. It's one of those things, too, you also account for if you draw buffs off the top.
Book of Specters. It's not AoE, but it is the most important card in his deck that he is currently missing from that Fire Tree. And think about this. If he played that last turn, he could have booked this turn.
Right. Well, this is one turn before the Dragon Ball Scorcher.
And there are no buffs, crucially, in Jing's hand. So this is a board that is prey to Dragon Ball Scorcher. Ooh, a Doomsayer.
It's pretty good.
It is.
I mean, Jing has the answer, but it's still something that gives him the ability to try and get ahead of Jing. Although the problem is that if your opponent has Soul of the Forest, you sometimes might bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah.
This is definitely a little bit of a gambit here.
Yeah, it is. There are a couple of things. I mean, granted, any kind of buff here is powerful. That's a swipe.
Yeah, Jing had the answer anyways with the Hogsteed.
Yeah, and I think that I wonder which he'd rather play. Hogsteed allows him to develop a board. He can punch down the 2-1. So Hogsteed is better in terms of development, and it leaves you the swipe to potentially answer a larger minion in the future. But no buffs in Jing's hand does mean that Yiying has that answer in the form of Dragonmaw Scorcher in his hand. And I do want to point out one of the major differences in the lists of these players. We have seen 2 players with Summoner Mage make it through already to the semifinals in the form of Viper and Bunny Hopper. Both of them are playing Rabble Bouncer in their decks. How much better would Rabble Bouncer be than Giggling Inventor?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're Hunter Ace, you play both.
Yes,
And
that's an option.
in fact, Hunter Ace and Bloody Face both have Summoner Mage.
Sure.
So that means 3 mages will be guaranteed going to the top 4.
I actually believe that every single player who brought Mage who could make it through made it through.
Yes, there's 7 players, and I think 6 of them made it through. The reason why is because 3 of them were in Group D.
Right.
Quite an amazing statistic. Quite an amazing swing on the board.
Yeah,
Dragonmaw Scorcher coming in big.
Really big deal. There is a swipe here. Another belligerent gnome.
Yeah, which is okay. I mean, these seem, again, fairly mediocre.
Not for this matchup, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, Yang, I guess, doesn't really need that Rattling Bouncer right now.
What to do?
And there are enough cards in Yiying's hand that Mountain Giant can come down next turn. He is in an interesting position that all 4 of his spells, or rather all 6 of his spells, because he is playing both copies of Power of Creation, are in his deck. So he doesn't necessarily have the safe Book of Specters into Mountain Giant that lower spell versions can often make as a play.
Right. I mean, that's the thing about Mountain Giant. If you're going to be playing against a token-based deck, it feels heavily inefficient because you're not going to be able to race them fast enough,
Right.
and then trading into them is pretty poor. So I think Yang would rather favor Booker Specters, but like you said, that adds additional risk because of his deck building process.
Yeah.
That's I've heard countless times on Kipper's stream where he's talking about, like, I don't know if Power Creation is something you want to
I
put
hate
in Book of Specters.
I think, oh God. All right, but Jing, he's going to go wide in this board. He's already seen 1 copy of that Dragonmaw Scorcher.
Right.
There are no copies of Mind Control Tech in Yiying's deck. He is playing the Doomsayers instead. And one of those is gone already with no real way to support them further. He does have the Fire Tea Witch Doctor if he wants to try and find AoE off of that. Or perhaps Book of Specters to dig deeper.
What to do?
I mean, Fire Tree Witch Doctor, I think, could be his first start, like we were talking about. Find something that's just more useful in this situation. I don't even know what he could draw off Book of Specters that would get him in a better position right now.
He goes for it, finds Book of Specters, finds Zeliax, and second book is goner.
Okay. But now he has less mana to play with the Fire Tree Witch Doctor. So had he picked up, say, Arcane Explosion.
Arcane Missiles.
Yeah.
It's still good. There's a lot of small minions, but he also just has a ping available.
Right. That's kind of some of the things that we're getting at. Just like he lost that ability to ping and play Arcane Missiles, and now if Jing had, big Soul of the Forest plays, which I see just being drawn.
Okay.
That's a big deal.
It is.
That's like that's 1 or 2 extra minions that survive because of it.
Yeah.
And those decisions compound onto each other because Giggling Inventor means it's only good in the situations where your opponent doesn't have a wide board that can trade easily.
Giggling Inventor is still just good against tokens when they don't have that many minions, because they don't have that much in the way of spells, though we do see Jing. He's got Swipe in his hand. So he can take out a lot of bodies alongside the Divine Shields of those Giggling Inventors if that is the play that Yiying decides to make next turn. All right, well, he's going to go with the most stats he can. Keeper into Soul the Forest.
I like it.
And does he decide that he wants to make any kind of trades here?
It does. He does have to think about the spell that was discovered, but...
Yeah, if there's some sort of AoE, he definitely doesn't want to trade his board in and then get AoE down. Yep, just going to go in. Get you. Not much damage, though. Jing has drawn all the tokens and not much in the way of buffs. And now the spot removal that Yiying has, he's got Crowd Roaster, he's got the Voodoo Doll. Neither of them very effective against this wide board.
Yeah, and Keeper Saladros is definitely something he has to think about removing as well as a priority. If he just plays Giggling Inventor, he's not killing Saladros, and he might give Jing even more value off of his short hand. Like, he knows one of them is Squirrel.
And you've also got to be thinking, okay, what does a Roar look like? What does a Power of the Wild look like? What does Defense of the Ancients look like?
Maybe this ends up just being a Ziliak's turn just to try and eliminate some of that possibility, gain a little bit of life back.
It does give you a bit of a buffer. Ziliax plus ping or attack ping into Ziliax, either one.
And then you do get to eliminate a Treant that way. I'm leaning towards that. Just because, again, Keeper Saladros, very threatening.
Oh, yeah. If you had Wrath, if you had Power of the Wild, either of those with the Keeper in play, super strong.
Double swipe.
All right, second swipe is the draw. And not really the ability to take advantage of this board from Jing here. He has drawn these removal spells, which are not really core. Very important in other matchups, but not really that powerful here against the Summoner Mage.
It seems to be the opposite side of what we saw Jing's Token Druid deck struggle with in the previous tournament, or previous part of the tournament, where he had all the buffs and no minions to go wide. And I feel like because Token Druid doesn't have that ultimate infestation to help really smooth out that late game scenario, you are stuck in these positions a lot of times.
Yeah, when you're playing a deck that requires synergies to come together in order to be powerful, it's difficult to make it work without card draw. And this deck doesn't have card draw outside of Wrath. So you are often at the mercy of just what your deck serves up, and we're seeing part of that here.
Time waits for no one.
Jing valuing just that extra bit of life that Drain can get. And to a Token Druid, I mean, 3 damage might seem like a lot.
And gets him. Sends in the troops.
Definitely a good sign for HCT, recognizing that on 7-man, that's the best they could do. No buffs whatsoever coming in.
He does also know he's going into a Forest Aid turn. Oh, Sun Fury Protector. That makes that Giant look a lot better. But you are also in the position of, well, do I want to get my Giant down now? Do I want to save it to maybe have a big Conjurer's Calling turn? I don't have Conjurer's Calling, so I think that the Mountain Giant plus Protector plus Ping looks like the immediately obvious play of what you may look to do this turn, because it sets up a very strong both offensive and defensive posture. Your opponent can't even kill it on the board.
Yeah, Twilight Drake's also viable because it has 1 extra health.
It's true. Yeah, and Twilight Drake is much worse with the Conjurer's Calling later.
Right.
So that may be a stronger play as well.
Yeah. Also at the same time, maybe Draking is thinking about tempo swings. Like maybe he plays Giggling Inventor and sets it up for like that Mountain Giant Twilight Drake taunt both.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, if he layers Giggling Inventors over 2 turns,
also possible.
Jing, with 1 swipe being used, has to go with 4 attacks in. So these are all viable options here for HCT. I'm kind of more in the Twilight Drake camp, but the thing is, Jing hasn't buffed his board, so maybe this Mountain Giant just starts pressuring his life total.
It's true. All right, does find Landscaping. So many tokens, so few buffs here for Jing.
I mean, but he can get a full board right now.
You can cast Forest Aid this turn, and you have nothing else that really seems great. Your opponent also used a taunt on this Giant, which makes the threat of Conjurer's Calling feel like at least slightly lower. It's like, okay, well, you at least committed this, but it does look like he's afraid of Conjurer's Calling and go ahead and take the Giant out.
Yeah. No, that does make sense. Also, Jing playing for the Conjurer's Calling threat just makes Jing utilize or show that he has a buff or damage.
Right.
That's the second swipe, which means Giggling Inventor now gets really good.
Right, that's true. It's very, very true. And I wonder, while you do set yourself up to be vulnerable to a Conjurer's Calling if you do leave the Giant up, you're also just sort of stranding your Forest Aid in your hand, which is so hard to use.
Maybe that's what Jing's thinking about, why he wants to maybe even trade in these Dreamway Guardians so that he can get the board space in the future.
Yep, that's what he does. He does know there's still that spell. That spell remaining from the Fire Tree Witch Doctor, though. So definitely going to be sweating the threat of a mass removal spell. Calico, speak of mass removal, that's a powerful option that can give HCT AoE in a future turn.
Right. I think Jing also recognizes without his swipes, and he needs Giggling Inventors, he has to have these 2 attack minions to get through the Noyotrons very efficiently.
Well, the one attack can always clear the Divine Shield anyway. But.
That's fair. But more power equals good for Jing right now.
Yep. And now, from HCT's perspective, how does he want to do this? Does he want to Giggling Inventor roadblock all of the attacks that are available to Jing? One of the interesting things about Giggling Inventor, you actually just put a bunch of 1-2s in play, and that prevents your opponent from getting their 2-2s killed, which makes Forest 8 actually stranded for at least one of its ability to generate treants in Jing's hand.
I think what's potentially scary too is that Jing hasn't drawn a buff, which means he's very likely to draw a buff soon.
Yep. All right.
Or is he?
No, that's another landscaping. Jing is the Lorax over
right.
here. He just speaks for the trees, you know? He's just like calling all the treant friends.
Yeah. Forest 8 here. Biggest board possible. Back over to HCT.
And this is a tough spot because HCT does have Kalecgos. So he can play Kalecgos and fish for AoE. However, if he plays Kalecgos and fishes for AoE and does not get it, he can only kill one of these minions. That leaves 5 treants on board. That means that definitely lethal with any kind of AoE effect.
But with this Conjurer's Calling. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Whoa, hold on.
Dream Petal Florist.
Oh, come on. I want to see some dank Kalecgos
Soul of
action.
the Forest.
That's
landscaping into Soul. That is a full board that will not die.
It won't die, however, if he plays Landscaping Soul of the Forest, Jing's playing with his cards face up at that point because it's this twin spell form of the Forest 8, and HCT,
it's true.
Maybe he just counter pushes. He's got some sizable damage on the board.
Yes, you're at 30 though, and I feel like you don't have many other options. Like your other play, it's possible, is the Forest 8, and you can't even get your guys killed. So I feel like Jing just has to say, okay, yep, you know what I got, but what I got's got to be good enough.
Right. What I'm saying is for HCT, when he has this information, maybe he ignores trying to clear the board all the time. Maybe just like pushes damage with every minion, play Giggling Inventor, Conjurer's Calling again, and just counter pressures for lethal.
Well, this is for Jing. Is this a question of do I kill this Dream Petal Florist? You know, can I let this get another tick? And he decides he cannot. He gets that out of the way. It would be the difference between 19 and 15.
I think this was
Conjurer's Calling number 2.
Really important for Jing to do because of the point was mentioned. It's just that HCT could easily find a way to counter swing for lethal if he's not careful. Like a lot of times, if you're so tunneled on trying to finish your opponent, there's some sizable minions that can come out. Yes, again, the second Giggling
number
Inventor.
2. Play defense. Give me. Oh.
Hey, Rafam makes an appearance.
Godfrey's like, come on. I want to go into that token deck. Come on. I love these things.
Here we go.
Last of the Ancients. Finally, the draw from Jing.
Is it too late?
It is definitely not a good spot for him here. If he doubles up on Ancients, I don't even know if that's that good, is the thing. He can only, it takes 2 attacks to get through Rafam, and then every remaining attack goes into an Anoyotron. Is it best for him to just trade with the small ones right now so he gets big ones after the fact into the Anoyotrons? Would he rather have 4 2s, right, that have the Death Rattle, or have fresh 4/4s? All right, doubles up. A lot of taunts to get through.
Yeah, he needs 4 attacks to get, or 5 attacks rather.
Yeah, it's just everything. Everything goes into these minions.
Yep.
And now he's got a bunch of small minions. He gets a bunch of big minions. There's still another Conjurer's Calling.
Conjurer's Calling with the crowd roaster here. Alex Straza is not going to be able to end the game
13.
unless he was a god at Hearthstone and able to arcane missiles to the face twice. Oh man, that's what I'm talking about. If you're like underestimating the power of the mage to turn the gas the other way.
Yeah, Kalecgos comes down. What's he find? Arcane Explosion, not enough here. Only 1 damage. This is Kalecgos, not Malygos.
But he knows what card Jing's holding, which is the second copy of the Forest 8, so he can just remove some of the targets, push a little bit of damage, and Kalecgos is one of those, like, you have to leave this on board, otherwise you're going to give up your win condition.
Yep. And he can just Conjurer's Calling this turn. He can trade one of these 7 drops.
Yes.
Make 2 more 7 drops.
Handful of taunts in the 7-mana pool.
Finds. Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, if he had the ability to use Arcane Explosion for free.
The Moonkin there is plus spell damage.
10. Savage Roar is lethal.
Yeah,
There's
still
10 damage
in
on the
play.
board.
Roar is exactly lethal. War Druid Lodi is not.
And also, there is a lot of counter swing. So HCT has Alex Straza to close the game if he allows 15 life or 15 power or more to exist on the board. And I don't know if he has much of a choice.
I feel like this is just slipping away from Jing here. You know, he can't kill Calicos. He can't do it.
Okay.
He can use War Druid Lodi and rush and only kill Calicos, basically. Or he can kill the 7/7.
Yeah, I mean, there is merit to killing 7/7 just because of that, but now this 4-state with Explosion, that is not going to be pretty. And I think that just locks Jing out of the game from that point on.
I mean, if he kills the Moonkin, the Arcane Explosion will not clear his board.
That is such a difficult thing to evaluate.
And it'd have to be exactly Arcane Explosion that you're trying to play around.
It looks so much more sense
All right,
to ignore it.
So sad. I got a 2/8 off of my Conjurer's Calling. Well, that's the best possible card you can get when you have an Arcane Explosion here against the Token Druid.
Is there a lethal opportunity because he has the +2 from the Arcane Missiles? If he Arcane Explosions, Alex Strazas, there's 3 life remain. There's 3 life on the board because there's a Treant and there's a 1 health minion, and there's 3 to the face. That's lethal, isn't it?
Explosion.
Yeah. So if he
play the missiles now. Well, I guess you'd have to play the Alex first, and then play missiles, and then see where they go. Missile is 5.
Oh, it's it's +2 spell damage. This is lethal, I believe.
11.
HCT gonna strike back. No.
No.
He's 1 off.
Yeah, he had a bit of armor
so
as well.
close. Oh, the armor count.
Yeah,
You're
he
right.
had 1
I was
armor.
Thinking about 30.
Savage Roar.
The Savage Roar.
1 turn away. We heard the crowd and their commiseration with Jing's fate here, because this game is all but over. Jing will not get the sweep against HCT.
That was close. I can't believe Token Druid hung in there as much as it did with almost no buffs.
Jing just had small minions, one after another, and they kept fighting. He got his board cleared by that Dragonmaw Scorcher. You know, when he coined out that Whispering Woods, was only able to get a little off of it, never able to buff his team, and that Savage Roar was 1 turn too late. That means HCT survives in the World Championship for a chance to fight for that trophy.
Yeah, and that was definitely needed, obviously, because it was elimination, but the Mage was struggling a little bit here for HCT, able to withstand, despite not having all of the anti-aggro tools that are up to date according to what people are saying right now with the Rabble Bouncers. Doesn't have those mind control techs. Still able to get the win and potentially begin this reverse sweep train.
Yeah, he does need some help still, though, because he has his Hunter deck and his Rogue deck remaining. The Druid deck, we've seen it struggle. We have seen it struggle a lot, in fact. If you combine the record of Jing's Druid deck with the record of Ike's Druid deck, I think it's probably the worst performing overall deck in the tournament. And even alone for Jing, he got 3-0 swept in his 1 loss on that Druid deck, and he is really hoping that does not happen again.
All right, well, I mean, that Token Druid has been the big question mark of the event for a long time, and we're not sure about how its performance will fare. But I think so far, it's been doing okay this series as we're coming back to us.
I was looking at the board.
The board is like switching.
The board is so cool. I'm like, ooh, we're going to win a game. The board's switching.
Usually the board switches to the game board that's actually in-game.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, we're getting ready for game number 4.
That's what I thought, too. But apparently we're the ones in Orgrimmar.
That's right. It's cool. Coming next after this series, by the way, is the last quarterfinal between Bloodyface and Hunter Ace, which is going to be exciting. There's no more America's players besides Bloodyface, by the way. It'll be 3 Europeans if Hunter Ace takes a victory, and then 1 Chinese player, which would be a contrast to what happened last year where Europe got eliminated very early on.
There it is.
Looks like we resolved
It was the Rostagon's Rumble board, not the Orgrimmar board. Maybe it switched. I don't know. Maybe that's why they had to wait. Hold on.
Could
the
be.
board on the stage is wrong. We got to fix it.
Yeah, literally unplayable.
Yeah.
Or unwatchable, I guess, in this case. Jing has the Acorn Bearer to start things off. The Keeper Steladris and the Wrath. I think that's going to be pretty valuable. One of the things that Druid has a lot of difficulty in doing right now is actually just removing minions.
Yes.
Something that Admirable was voicing his complaint very, very vocally backstage. He's like, Druid can't kill minions anymore.
Well, speaking of Druid killing minions, the Wrath in Jing's hand, and he has Keeper Steladris. Coining out Keeper Steladris here gives him the ability to Wrath next turn on, say, a Hyena, and get both copies of Nature and Solar Wrath.
Yep, I agree. And I think in this position, Yang just does the best to set up the curve. Needs to get ahead on the board. One of the tricky things about mid-range Hunter versus the Token Druid is that, you know, you do have Unleash the Hounds, but just like the Grim Rally setups, if they buff the board a little bit too much, Unleash the Hounds is useless by itself.
Yeah. Jing does have the Hench Clan Hog Seed in hand, which I think he may think about using this turn, in part because giving the opportunity to HCT for any trades on his turn is terrifying. Because the Scavenging Hyena can come down, and if that gets out of range, for instance, if Jing just played Squirrel Squirrel here, it looks great. You got 2 1-1s against 2 1-1s. But if that becomes 2 1-1s against 2 1-1s that trade, and oh, suddenly there's a giant hyena that's out of range of any of your removal.
What about just hero power?
That's also an option.
I think the reason why I like the hero power is because he has a pretty decent reactive hand. He has the Hogsteed and the Wrath with the Steladris, and he, assuming that it's not Misha, well, actually even the Leok, but he still has options regardless. And in fact, yeah, it makes sense because if, let's say, a 4 health minion comes out here, he still has Wrath and the Steladris, and then he can utilize the second copies of them to help pick apart the board.
Well, Wrath Steladris does not kill Misha here.
Yeah, it's an investment in the future, so he gets he has both copies, and then he could utilize it further in the future. The other option, of course, is just to
just
remove
kill it.
Misha.
You could either hero power or Hogsteed it down. The things that must be foremost on Jing's mind are Hyena and Unleash the Hounds, and how he can build a board that doesn't get punished by either of them, or in particular, both of them. And there's also Timberwolf. So there are a lot of ways that HCT, especially as the game goes on and he has more and more mana, can really threaten Jing if he does build a board that isn't, at least in some way, protected by buffs. All right, it's going to be Hogsteed. Comes in, attacks Misha.
Yeah, this looks like he's going to remove it instead. I don't think he wants to take the damage.
Yep.
Reasonable.
And this does mean the board is, at this point, even. You know, 1-1 versus a 1-1. Tracking is the draw.
Yeah, and this is probably like the last turn that HCT has to set up for Jing's big wide boards, because now we're starting to come up on Whispering Woods. That Hyena is a good
Hyena is good. There's also Dire Frenzy. Dire Frenzy with the Spring Paw in your hand is pretty powerful, but it's pretty slow. So I think that, especially having seen a Wrath, just Hyena plus Spring Paw is pretty attractive here.
Yes.
Your opponent only has 1 more Wrath and 2 swipes that could clear off your board, but if it does get cleared, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
Especially
that being said, it's going to be hard to clear because turn 4 onwards is where Jing usually goes wide.
And he's not playing the Hyena. He wants to save the Hyena to combo with the Unleash the Hounds.
Right.
Which makes a lot of sense, especially considering going to turn 4, there's still the possibility of just double swipe in hand. There's the Gnome.
Gnome is fairly interesting here.
I mean, you just play the Keeper Steladris into Power of the Wild here. You know, you get 2 minions on the board, which are not vulnerable. They're not small minions. They're not vulnerable to Unleash the Hounds. You end up with a 3-2 and a 2-3, and both copies of the Choose One cards from hand. Yeah, I really like this. Gets you tempo plus future value. Vicious Scalehide is the draw. Is this an opportunity that HCT wants to take with this Hyena? You know, the Unleash is a really important resource in this matchup because of the sheer number of cards that generate wide boards from Jing.
Well, the Hyena will go to 5 life. It gains 1 life for each trade in minions. So if you Hyena, Unleash the Hounds, kill Keeper Steladris, It's still safe from the Panther. It would need a double buff or extra removal spells, and you already saw one Wrath. You can also evaluate what you draw off of the Shimmerfly. I mean, there's like possibilities of, say, multi-shot, and all of a sudden you got pulled out of the situation fairly cleanly.
He's going to trade first. Finds Secret Plan.
Secret Plan pretty good against Token Druid if you're able to pick up things like Explosive Trap and Rat Trap.
What's he planning? Ooh, Snake Trap.
Also not a bad option, given that Token Druid likes to trade a lot.
Okay, Misdirection is interesting. Misdirection into... So this is interesting because if Jing simply makes a big board here, ooh, another Power of the Wild.
Yeah, so this looks like Explosive Trap.
It does look like Explosive Trap, but you know that there is a Leader of the Pack in the hand, right? So you could just play the Leader of the Pack, and it would make Explosive Trap really not do very much.
Right, and that's what Yang wants. He wants that Jing can go for that buff, and then try to say, I'm clever.
And if he goes really wide on the board, well, you have Hyena plus Unleash.
Right, although...
But you don't have... If they're all buffed, that makes it hard for you to really deal with it. I don't know. What does this board look like? So... Jing can just play, he could play Squirrel, Power of the Wild, or Squirrel, Power of the Wild. You definitely, I feel like, want to use the Power of the Wild now that you have the Keeper Slaughters in play, because it's essentially just an extra card for the future. And yeah, Squirrel plus Power into a Panther into Leader of the Pack is what I would expect we will see. Oh no, okay.
He's just getting the buffs again.
He's just going to double buff.
Yep.
Oh, and this makes the Misdirection so powerful.
Depends on where it hits.
It looks like Keeper may have died.
Oh
no, attack the Squirrel.
Okay, still nice.
Still very good. And the double buff there. Ooh, the Tundra Rhino. Okay.
The double buff, very annoying.
Yeah.
Is Yang, a little bit too greedy with his Unleash the Hounds here, but at the same time, it's not like Jing gives him an opportunity to play into it. Yeah, where is that Unleash the Beast when you need it?
Yeah, this would be a great opportunity for Unleash the Beast. Right now, there's 2 Hounds off Unleash, a Lynx and the Hyena. He has 3 possible damage he can get if he wants to play the Hyena as well. He could do 4 in total with the Vicious Scalehide. That just takes down the Keeper. There's still, this Keeper Slaughter is just very, very difficult.
Here's the thing. I think now that you know that there's a second buff, you might have to let go of the Hyena plus the Unleash the Hounds combo.
Yeah.
I think that it's at this point almost a bait, because you're trying to think, okay, I need to get this swing, but Jing has so many buffs that even if you pick up the Timberwolf, you're not going to be able to get there.
Okay, so he decides, well, I got to at least put some damage into this. Belligerent Gnomes are pretty good.
Yeah, just a taunt with the buffs like you were mentioning.
Even just Belligerent Gnome here. Like, he can just play Belligerent Gnome, punch your guy, attack you in the face.
Right.
There's 2 4-health taunts. That's really good against Unleash. You have to have Unleash with so many buffs in order for that to get through the Gnomes.
Precisely, and then he has finishers with buffs, summon minions, Savage Roar. Things are turning up really good for Jing right now.
Jing has just navigated very well around the Unleash threat.
He could bridge the gap and just play 1 Belligerent Gnome instead. Maybe summon a Panther. Like, just to kind of get more board presence immediately. Because, Gnomes obviously complicate the Unleash trades.
Yep, gonna go in with that plan.
Summoning a Panther does make the Timberwolf more threatening, though.
Yeah, because you only have one 4-health guy. That's part of why I like the idea of just playing 2 Belligerent Gnomes. Just so much stronger against Unleash with any kind of buffs.
Right, and I think now it's kind of like one of those situations where results-oriented thinking would have helped you. Like, oh yeah, if I played the Hyena, you may be able to force a trade or force more removal, and now I get the second Hyena. And that's sticking out like a sore thumb right now.
I mean, there is the Unleash plus Vicious Scalehide plus Hyena. You can trade in 3 into the Gnome. But this is just, you know, you end up with a big Hyena, but you only kill a Gnome.
With another belligerent Gnome waiting.
I feel like that Gnome is just taunting him.
Oh yeah, he's pointing. Well, he's pointing at Jing.
Ha ha. Is that what he sounds like? I actually don't even know what that.
Did you watch the raunchy animations?
I did.
With the belligerent Gnome.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It was then when I decided I'll never play that card in my life. and I think in this case, Jing maybe have changed my mind. You're getting stuck in a tough position. I quite frankly don't know what's the best option here. I do think that maybe pumping that Hyena again, trying to take the advice, it might be too late. You know?
He's going for it. He decides, okay, I at least have to get this off the board so I can draw another Unleash, so I have a hope, perhaps.
Well, here's another question. Like, you know, if you put a second Hyena on the board, you force your opponent to react to both of them. And it's one of those things where, like, you can't kill one without buffing the other. And
yeah.
I mean, I think there is merit to doing that, but he does remove one extra minion, so things like Leader of the Pack, which he knows is in the hand.
Second Belligerent Gnome is online. Buffed 2 power.
And I know you're being fairly facetious, but that's actually fairly relevant in this position.
It's not bad.
Yeah, like he actually just has like a decent-sized minion to develop with Belligerent Gnome, landscaping, and like a Leader of the Pack.
Yeah, and then he can just trade in with the Keeper's Ladders. I actually kind of like your point. You know, maybe it's worth leaving up the Belligerent Gnome and just have 2 Hyenas that are both 8/5.
Yeah,
I think that may have been a stronger position from our perspective here. Jing could kill it. He could just use Savage Roar, take him out, but that would be 2 of his big threats. And as it stands, you are leaving the potentially buffed, and we know buffed because there's Leader of the Pack in the hand.
Yeah.
It's a rough spot for sure.
Yeah, and Yang has Zul'jin, which is just a very strong card in Hunter's arsenal, but there's not a lot of good spells that were even played.
Yeah,
so
turns away.
Yeah, Yang is in a difficult spot, and I think with each of these passing turns, now that Jing has a real board, he can just play very safe and get away with it. Oh, big draw here for Ying.
Yeah, but I don't know that's enough. I don't know what minions he can draw that get him out of this. He just played his Unleash the Hounds, so a Timberwolf doesn't matter. It's just a 1/1 at this point. Another Vicious Scalehide.
Okay.
Timberwolf, Scalehide, Shimmerfly. There's a belligerent gnome in the way. How do you get past a belligerent gnome? It's impossible.
Well, it's a lot more than just a gnome. He's at least at the level of a SNJing Shield Master. And that is scary to say the least. Jing he's got 4, 10, 13 plus Savage Roars, 10, 20.
I didn't do the math. I think it's lethal.
It should be with
Roar alone is 10.
Yeah, with the twin spell of Blessing of the Ancients, I think Jing has it.
13, yeah, it's way past enough. Savage Roar plus Blessing of the Ancients and the Hero Power, that is enough. And Jing will get past his countryman Ying and make his way into the World Championship semifinal.
That's another player that is also from the lower bracket advancing to the semis.
And we see a sigh of relief and a wink to the camera as the 2 countrymen share a hug, as only one of them could advance, and today that is Jing.
Yeah, and I think Jing, quite frankly, was playing just a little bit more tighter, just definitely firing on all cylinders, spotting, making sure to spot the better plays, even though there's, some plays that look fairly obvious. He was able to hesitate, spot even a more optimal line, and is rewarded with a semifinal berth.
And we see that we have 3 of our 4 semifinal berths set. It'll be Bunny Hopper versus Viper, while Jing waits the winner of Bloody Face versus Hunter Ace, and that match is coming up next.
That's right. One thing that we talk about is that the world champions historically have at least lost in their group stages, and Jing kind of continues the hopes for that tradition to continue. Also could start a new history here for China to become the world champion, and so you can definitely tell a lot of hopes of the East and from all the millions of fans at home back in China are definitely rooting for him.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hopes of the West riding in the next match.
Right.
Where we have the last representative of the Americas region in the form of Bloody Face going up against the European and global points leader in Hunter Ace.
The last points leader.
And my champion for PAX.
And most importantly, Kibler's Blessing is the final points leader, and we've had points leaders be able to take it. Firebat was the points leader in America, along with Hyped back in 2014. And then in 2016 and 2017, we had Pavel and Tom do the same. Can Hunter Race be the last standing points leader to fulfill that tradition, or will he be upset by the final remaining America's player? We're gonna find that out all coming up next on the World Championship. If you guys missed it, it was a back and forth match between the two Chinese players, but there only can be one, and that is Jing from China that's gonna be advancing to the top 4. Don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone World Championship action continues right after this.
Brotherhood shall prevail.